Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to talk about the Aquarius solar eclipse taking place on February the 17th. So this is the first solar eclipse in Aquarius since 2018. So it's been 8 years since we had the last eclipse. So if you're a fixed sign, so that is Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, or Taurus, specifically rising sign, this is really going to affect you. It is taking place at 28 degrees. So that is the third decan, the third of Aquarius. So anything from 20 to 29 degrees of those fixed signs will really impact you. So this is a new moon, and it's a supercharged new moon because it's a solar eclipse. I have been a little bit apprehensive about this eclipse, mainly because it's quite an aggressive new start. So I'm going to put on the screen the placements right now and explain what's happening. So we have a lot of energy here in Aquarius, Aries, and Pisces. So of course, because it's a new moon, we have the sun and the moon in Aquarius. At 28 degrees, this is characterized by the Seven of Swords in tarot. The Seven of Swords is like a lion. It's like, I'm really angry. And it's also about deception. So there's a lot about competition, being deceived, and kind of having the rug pulled from under you. That doesn't mean that it's going to be, oh my God, the most scary thing. I'm so terrified of this eclipse. It just means it's quite an aggressive new start. So if there's something in your life, because I've been doing a lot of eclipse readings for people who've been like, I've got this particular situationship that I really need to release from my life and I don't know what to do. And then I see their chart and I'm like, oh, you have this eclipse in your fifth house of like more situationships. Yeah, you need to basically have a really aggressive conversation with this person where you're saying, it's my way or the highway. We need to figure this out. If you're going to keep playing me, I'm going to walk, basically. Because the Seven of Swords is about rooting out deception and seeing things that are, not good for you, that are toxic, and that you say, no, I don't want to do that. Because Aquarius is all about innovating. Saturn is also about loyalty. So if someone is going to deceive you or they're going to play in your face, Saturn is going to say no, right? This is the perk of Aquarius because it's co-ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So it can be loyal, it can have that responsibility and that maturity, but at the same time, it can also say, I want to innovate, I want to take an old traditional system, I don't want to ruin it, but I want to innovate it and change it because it needs to adapt to the times. So this is when you yourself need to adapt to this energy that Aquarius is trying to bring. So we cannot stay in old toxic habits. So as we can see here, we've got Venus, Mercury, and the North Node in Pisces. So Venus in Pisces is exalted. So imagine that Venus is hosting a beautiful dinner party and Pisces is like the favored guest. So loves to be there. If you're watching as a Leo rising or an Aries rising, there is much more room for deception and manipulation, especially with this eclipse, particularly obviously for Leo rising because it's in your 7th house of committed relationships. So I'll come to talk about that the putting someone on a pedestal or not seeing the red flags in front of you is very obvious here because Pisces is very deceptive and delusional. Got a Pisces moon. So we don't really see it right in front of us when the red flags are there. So just be mindful of that. Mercury is also in Pisces and Mercury is debilitated in Pisces. So that's when you can't really get your words out because you're kind of in Lulu land, it's basically head in the clouds, don't really know how to get things out in a very succinct and strategic way. Of course, the North Node is still in Pisces and it's currently retrograde. That's our spiritual direction of travel at the moment, moving us towards more intuition. So especially when that is coincided with Venus, we're really looking at rooting out red flags and, listening to our intuition and saying something does not feel right. Of course, freshly entered, we have Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So about 4 days before the eclipse, Saturn has entered Aries, and Saturn is also debilitated in Aries. And I mentioned before that we have a lot of debilitation at the moment, Saturn, Mercury, and of course Uranus in Taurus. So energy that makes us feel a little bit unstable and not quite sure what's going on. And also I should add that the sun does not like to be in Aquarius either, so that's also adding to the debilitated nature. Neptune and Saturn in Aries generally together can create a real energy of rooting out the truth, and also understanding that we don't want things constricting us because we want this amazing new start that feels fresh, it feels innovative, like I said, with Aquarius. So there's generally a theme here, and I'm going to keep repeating myself, about a fresh new start, but it is an aggressive new start that we're fighting for. Mars is currently in Aquarius too here, as we can see, and Mars in Aquarius is going to be, really fiery when it comes to innovating, changing things. So again, we can't really sit on our hands with this eclipse. No matter what house it's in for you, there's going to be change, and it's going to be quite sort of in your face. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the fact that we have Uranus as a co-ruler to Aquarius. Jupiter is trining Venus, so that's really lovely because these are two very benefic, harmonious planets. But in my eyes, with this eclipse, again, it's just Jupiter's just enlarging the weird delusion that Venus and Pisces is bringing. So again, for someone like a Leo rising, it might seem on face of it, oh, this is wonderful. But actually, it's more about, okay, that's enlarging this deception, enlarging this delusion. I really have to start looking at what's in the mirror. Again, I look at the void, it looks right back at me, and understanding that maybe things are not as they seem. And it's very easy for us to look at a chart and say, Jupiter is trining Venus. How wonderful. Everything's going to be great. So lovey-dovey for Valentine's Day, right? Not necessarily. It really depends on the placements and the kind of house that this is going to affect for you. So that's why what I'm saying now for you is context. Please do your own research and see how that's affecting the houses. And not only do we have this eclipse, the sun and moon in Aquarius, but they're also both squaring Uranus and Taurus, okay? So you have a debilitated Uranus and Taurus squaring a very difficult placement of sun in Aquarius, right? Doesn't like to be there. And then the moon in Aquarius, which is very closed off. And again, doesn't always see deception because it kind of just, it doesn't want to hear it. It's not necessarily like I can never open up. It's more like robotic or like on autopilot. So again, it's kind of like it's very easy to get stuck in a routine and then not see what you need to change. But of course, Uranus in Taurus, which is about to move into Gemini in 2 months, is kind of saying, no, you really need to look at that. It's putting a point of tension on the moon and the sun. So the personality and the emotions are really being sort of erratic, okay? So that can be again, an anger, a frustration, and an aggression. No matter what, again, I can see no matter what, there is aggression and there's competition to this moon. The biggest thing about this eclipse is, again, taking place at 28 degrees, it's incredibly judgmental. Right? So that's when you're really either judging yourself or judging others. And because it's actually ruled by the moon and Venus, okay, we're kind of like trying to confront the old with the new. Again, it's like emotions mixed with the romanticism. You know, there is a reason that there's a massive artistic period called the Romantics, right? Because it's like we really romanticized a period that was actually quite difficult. We're going through a lot of revolution and a lot of sort of edgy energy, and we tried to romanticize it. And the reason why I bring that as a sort of metaphor, should we say, or maybe even analogy, is because it's very easy for us to look at something and romanticize it and not innovate it because, oh, well, it was so beautiful, you know, oh, what, there's no need in changing it. But Aquarius is trying to say, yes, we do need to change it because it is so judgmental. It's saying, well, look what's wrong with it, actually. You think it's all right, but let's look what's wrong with it, because there is a lot wrong with it. So this is what it means for your rising sign. If you're an Aries rising and this is taking place in your 11th house, this house can encompass quite a few things. Of course, Aquarius rules this house too. It can deal with friendships and the people that we're, networking with and we're maybe being mentored by or mentoring, sort of large groups of people, but also our morals and values. And our long-term goals, the goals that we have to get very strategic by, and we have to get strategic with them because they enforce our survival, okay? And actually Seven of Swords deals with this element of survival and often doing things that are very drastic in order to survive. So this can be a competition between a friend or a group of people. So you could be, in competition for a promotion, or you're trying to prove yourself. And you're trying to prove yourself because you ultimately need that validation to feel like you're going to survive. It's very sort of like fight or flight with this eclipse. And I can't tell you why it feels so dramatic, but it really just does. Sometimes in our lives we don't have that kind of dramaticism, but it generally feels like this could appear in a very strange way that you're not expecting, especially because that sun and moon is squaring Uranus. And again, I've always said what you think Uranus is going to do here and here is going to be the sixth thing at the back that you never thought about down in the basement. So it's kind of like be prepared and expect the unexpected, as it were. You might also find that there is some competition and aggression with a group of people, or that you really need to get serious on a goal, because if you don't, things are going to stay the same. You're going to just sort of dwindle. If you are a Taurus rising, then this is going to impact you because you're a fixed sign, so it's taking place in your 10th house. This is your career, your public persona and responsibility. So of course, because Aquarius is ruled by Saturn traditionally, this level of responsibility feels a little bit heavier than it normally would be. So you could be competing with someone for a promotion or to get a job. You have an interview, but it's like this person is favored and you're like, I've really got to change things up. I have to have this new start. Maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. Maybe I need to change up my CV and cover letter, or change up the way I'm answering certain interview questions. You might also find that there's this new start with your public persona, especially because Pluto is in Aquarius right now, which is in the 10th house for you, giving an energy to changing how you are coming across in the world, especially if you're wanting notoriety. So there is definitely a level of fighting for what you want here. You could have an argument with a boss who is judging you for something that they just fundamentally don't understand. If you are a Gemini rising, this is in your 9th house. So this is going to be a judgment around your life choices, shall we say. So choosing to travel, choosing to study something, choosing to have a different spiritual outlook on life, especially because there's so much 9th house energy right now for you. Mars being in the 9th house for you is going to push you to understand what you want spiritually and philosophically. It's sort of a, where do I go from here now? So with you, Gemini, there's going to be some judgment on your life choices, and maybe you're also even comparing yourself to other people and saying that I should have this type of life. It's really important for you to know that your life path is your own. The only judgment is coming from yourself, and again, that judgment is really not you from a source energy point of view. It's all the amalgamation of opinions from society. We don't judge ourselves innately. We don't wake up as a child and, you know, a 5-year-old and be like, I think that I'm not doing good enough. You know, we don't really care. It's all about society's opinions. So it's really important to try and root that out with this fresh new start. If you are a Cancer rising, this is in your 8th house. So it's a particularly difficult house to have an eclipse in because it's so hidden and it deals with a lot of trauma. So when you have Aquarius here, it's trying to get you to be responsible for the things that you're afraid of and your fears. And particularly because it's so aggressive and so sort of like fight for your rights to be here, this can be rooting out a situationship or friends with benefits type of situation, maybe even a crush that you know is not going anywhere, or something that is not mutually reciprocated. This can also be that I really need a new start with my finances, my investments, and maybe even having to have a conflict with somebody over a contract or deal that you have in your life. And ultimately, it's kind of difficult, but it gets you in a point where you say, right, I've got a plan, I'm going to overcome this fear. And for a lot of you, it's a fear that you don't even realize. It's very hidden down, and the eclipse will root it out, because that's what Aquarius does. Because again, not only does it innovate, but it likes to be it likes to focus on boundaries because of its initial Saturn rulership. If you're a Leo rising, this is in your 7th house of committed relationships. So this is in opposition to your rising sign. So you really do need to take note of this. Not only because, as I mentioned, Venus is in Pisces, which is actually in your 8th house. So because of that, there is more susceptible nature to red flags and manipulation and gaslighting in relationships. But ultimately, this is that new start that's saying we're going to it's going to break or make, really. And not also judge yourself for your relationship. So if you're a single Leo rising and you're like, well, I don't have a relationship to have a problem with, how are you judging and viewing yourself with relationships? How does society judge you? You know, do you feel like if I go and sit out at a table and have dinner on my own that people are looking at me like I'm sad or I've been stood up? Like, what's your relationship to relationships, right, romantically? But also you could have an aggressive conflict with a client or some kind of legal matter that allows you to have a new start. Again, it feels like you're being basically pushed off the cliff, but it's a new start nonetheless. If you're a Virgo rising, this is in your 6th house. So this is going to be a house where you have to take on a level of responsibility for yourself or for somebody, and that can be really aggravating for you. Because with this Aquarius energy, it's all about humanitarianism and helping others. In the 6th house, that is a cadent house. So again, it doesn't see the ascendant, it's very selfless. And because of that, it's very much going to lie on the floor and let you walk all over me. I think you might actually find this is aggressive new start with people not walking all over you, with the give and take. And the reason Virgo rising is because you will have a lunar eclipse in your 1st house of self, March the 3rd, which is that release of all of the energy you've gone through recently. So this is kind of like a new start of putting yourself first, and also saying that, yeah, I want to help people, but it's not time for me to put myself on the grenade because I've done that, bought the t-shirt, and basically I can't be bothered. I don't want to do that, especially because Saturn is Aries is now in your 8th house, which is really going to root out the fears in your life and the trauma. So it's kind of all compounded about putting yourself first. If you are a Libra rising, this is in your 5th house. So this is definitely cutting out something like a situationship or having a quite aggressive new start with relationships. So saying maybe I need to start dating this type of person, or maybe I need to start focusing on myself, my pleasure, my creativity, my energy that's not given to everybody else. But also you might find that I am ready to step out my comfort zone because you're using the innovative and committed energy of Aquarius to do so. This is a house where it's going to be particularly emotional, because I think an eclipse in a 5th house just will be. It's just a little bit too volatile. It's not the most stable house in my opinion. So just be mindful that your emotions could be all over the shop here. You know that Saturn is now in your 7th house as well. So for most of you, not all of course, but for most of you, this will be related to relationships and maybe even your idea of relationships. If you are a Scorpio rising, this is in your 4th house. So as a fixed sign, this will affect you. And in the 4th house, it's definitely related to home, family, and the private sanctuary. So a very hidden house. Because of that, the Aquarius energy is trying to get you to ruminate on what is hidden. When you have a new moon, there's very little light in the sky, which means you have to really get detective energy and investigate what you need to find out. Whereas with a full moon, it's kind of obvious. We can see the light is hitting the skeletons in the closet. We can see it. Here we have to do a lot more detective work, especially because it's so hidden. So the 4th house will deal with home and family. So that can be an aggressive new start with a family member where you're saying like, we just really need to start on this. You could be cutting out a toxic family member, especially because Saturn in Aries for you now in that 6th house, which is all about getting very responsible for the things that you want in your life and looking after your own physical and mental health. But again, you'll also have Venus and Pisces in your 5th house, which is a lovely place for Venus and Pisces to be, but it's overly hedonistic and romantic and a bit obsessive. So again, it's sort of like focusing a lot on the image and the delusion and not focusing on the truth. So in this house, it can manifest in multiple ways, which is why I'm being a bit vague. And I also don't want you to feel like it's the only thing that you can focus on. Like everyone can focus on different things. Some people say, oh, I've been told I have to focus on this relationship. And I'm like, well, not necessarily, you have to take what resonates. But ultimately the theme here for the 4th house is that there is something that you need to really investigate and work on. And again, because Saturn being in Aries now in your 6th house is going to be focusing a lot more on the responsibilities in your life, which could be related to family and the home even. If you're a Sagittarius rising, this is in your 3rd house. So you currently have Saturn Aries in your 5th house. And with this energy, there's a focus on a difficult communication that may need to be had, or a friendship that has to end. I've had an eclipse in this particular house where friendship ended. And the reason being this can be quite aggressive is because when we have communication with Mercury in Pisces right now, which is debilitated, we're also in the pre-shadow period. You as a Sagittarius mutable sign are going to be affected by that energy also. It's like communication is all over the shop. It's aggressive. We're rooting out deception. You could find out some very shocking news here, especially with the Sun and Moon squaring Uranus. And it might be really like, oh, if you're studying, you could get grades back and it's not something that you thought you were going to get, and it feels like, okay, I really need to start knuckling down with my studies. I need to have new communication, better, more mature communication, and really start focusing on that. If you're a Capricorn rising like myself, then this is in our 2nd house. So this is the house of money, values and assets, but also confidence, stability and survival. So this is a particularly dicey house because 7 of Swords, a 28-degree decan, is literally about survival, okay? So this definitely is a new start with finances and income. Maybe we use the Aquarius energy to get very serious and innovative with our income and how we can make new streams of money. I definitely feel that way myself. But also because we are Saturn ruled as well, and this eclipse is taking place in a sign that is Saturn ruled, there's a level of responsibility to our finances here. And we might find that we're judging ourselves, like we don't have enough money, or we don't have as much money as this person next to us as A, B, C, D. But actually we have to remember that we're doing a really bloody good job, and we have to be grateful for what we do have right now. If you're an Aquarius rising, then this is taking place in your first house. This is all about you. If you're a little bit worried about this, I do have some discounted eclipse readings still available if you would like to get one with me. And I can show you and break down all your chart and say everything's going to be fine. So this is going to be an aggressive new start for your identity, your goals, perhaps even your appearance, but mostly about something that you need to cut out of your life and to prioritize yourself, shall we say. So of course, because it's in your first house of self, everything is really going to be focused on you. So this is not a selfless time. This is a very selfish time for you to start understanding what your goals are and what you want to get very serious about, because again, you are Saturn ruled, so it's all about that seriousness. I think this might also be related to projects and a sense of speed, because we have Saturn in Aries in the third house right now, which is trying to constrict that energy. And it's also trying to get you to be very mature with your communication. So because of that, you might have conversations with people that are a bit conflictual, and you're saying, look, this is not very mature. I need to focus on myself, my goals, especially my long-term goals, because Aquarius rules the 11th house. And really get very strategic about your identity. So use this as an aggressive new start where you get a whole... Get the board out, be like, right, this is my career, this is my love life, I want to do all these things, right? And then it's a new start for you. Again, that's why I keep saying it's a new start, but it's like an aggressive new start. If you are a Pisces rising, then this is taking place in your 12th house. So this is a house of mental health and spiritual retreat. And so this Aquarius eclipse is going to be this aggressive new start with having a mental health routine. You might find that you're like, enough's enough. I really need to have a new start with my mood, my mental health, because it's been all over the shop recently. Of course, you're having a bit of a release almost, because Saturn has moved out of Pisces now and it's moved into Aries, so it's no longer hitting your first house of self. So it's almost like a bit of a come down after a drug, you know, like I've just been to a gig and my throat's sore and I feel tired and my feet hurt and I need time to rest. But that time to rest is going to allow you to have a spiritual, not awakening, but a spiritual reset, shall we say. And even though it's not a full moon, it's a new moon, it's a new start, there is a level of trying to understand what you want to do next, because the new moon is where there's very little light in the sky. And when there's very little light in the sky, we have to do more detective energy. The 12th house, of course, is very hidden. So we have to start figuring out what we want spiritually and what we want to do next, using Saturn's energy of commitment and sort of getting real, and the co-rulership of Uranus with Aquarius to innovate and change things. So this is much more of a spiritual new start and a feeling of where do I go now, getting a plan ready and then hitting the ground running, especially because Saturn's now in Aries in your second house, which means that you're going to have to get really real about your finances and what you value. And just be mindful that other people might seem like they've got a really happy life, but they don't. We just don't see it a lot. Social media can be very deceiving, so try not to judge yourself for anything that you feel during this eclipse. So overall, that was the readings for the eclipse. Again, I have some discounted eclipse readings open with me if you would like them. They are £30 right now, which is about $40, I guess, but about 33 euros. And it is going to be a sort of 30 to 40 minute reading that gets sent to you. So it's not a live reading where I break down the chart and you can give me some context and say, hey, Abigail, I'm trying to build up my business here. What do you think this eclipse is going to do for me? What can I use strategically? And I will then analyze it for you. Or you can just get general birth chart readings with me, whatever. My shop is open in the description. Overall, it's not an eclipse to be frightened of, but it's definitely going to be an aggressive new start, and it's not going to be as nice as the Virgo eclipse, that's for sure, March the 3rd. So just be mindful that there's going to be some, you know, volatile energy, a bit of judgmental energy, quite sort of, you know, fight and bite, but also at the same time, this is a really good time to have a new start and to root out things that we don't need in our life, and to go past the delusion, especially with Mercury and Venus being in Pisces. So get yourself prepared and get yourself ready. Mood might be all over the shop, but I think it's going to be like that for everybody. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you feel about this eclipse. Are you looking forward to it? Are you a fixed signs, a little bit scared? How do you feel about it? How did you feel about the last eclipses we had in Pisces and Virgo last year? How did you feel about them? And yeah, just, you know, give me some interaction. Let me know how things are going, and I'll see you for the weekly horoscope on the weekend.